The SecretLab Magnus Pro is more than just another boring standing desk to hit the market. Now, while some might find it a bit over the top, others are likely to find a perfect fit with many of its standard features. Integrated power within its column, a massive cable management system to easily store that nest of wires, and a magnetic top that easily integrates a full-width mat are just a few of the things that really stood out to me. Let's take a deeper look at the rest of its features, build quality, and stability. There are two different standard size options available for the Magnus Pro. Ultimately, I went with their 59.1-inch wide and 27.6-inch deep option. I also updated the desk surface to include that Magpad in a signature black, and while this isn't required, for only $19 right now, it seems like a no-brainer based on what's really available on Amazon for similar pads. I also added the SecretLab cable management bundle for an additional $49, bringing my total to around $860. Now, if you're still not sure that this is the right standing desk for you, check out our standing desk cheat sheet linked in the description. The assembly process for the Magnus Pro was straightforward, but there were quite a few parts to assemble. In total, it took me about 45 minutes without help from a cordless drill, instead just using that toolkit that SecretLab sent with the package. Now, as expected, the presentation of the toolkit was top-notch, as was the rest of the packaging for their desk. While I didn't use a drill, I definitely would recommend it to speed this process up. Now, I think the average consumer will likely spend up to a couple hours on the assembly for this desk. To be honest, the only real hang-up for me was that Magpad. The magnetic force kept wanting to attach the pad to the desk, and without help, it was a bit of a struggle to get it perfectly aligned to actually lay the mat out. There are a ton of standard features on the Magnus Pro, and the first was an integrated vertical power supply that routed through the actual columns, also known as the legs. This cord is a beefcake, and since it was the only cord to power the desk and the power strip for additional items like your monitors, computers, it's nice to see something better than those cheap cords that we keep seeing on the FlexiSpot products. Now, integrating the power in the column really cleaned up that vertical cable issue you typically see with standard standing desks. The power supply then is accessible through their integrated horizontal cable management tray. The tray itself is pretty massive and feels well built. The flip-up access makes it super easy to hide your wires and have them accessible for your computer, monitors, and other accessories. The flip-up tray provides access to the desk surface edge as well, allowing you to clamp different items like a monitor arm to the desk. This was a bit more cumbersome since there isn't a lot of room to work with inside the tray. We have so many different monitor arms here that I decided not to get the SecretLab arm, but I was still able to attach it to the desk. Now, if your arm clamps down with bolts that require access below the actual mount, you might struggle here to tighten, depending on the clearance inside the box, especially the bottom of that tray. The cable management kit that I purchased with the desk included Velcro straps branded with SecretLab, plus 3 additional anchors that magnetically stuck to the desk. These are strong magnets and work very similar to the cable anchors that Robert's reviewed in the past from Anchor. Now, in my opinion, the SecretLab anchors are bigger and stronger, plus attached directly to the surface versus the Anchor alternatives. Not only is this kit functional, I think it looks good too. The only thing in the kit that I couldn't find a use for was those cable sheaths for legs, and this is really just because of the way a standing desk functions. As it extends, there was actually minimal coverage as the other 2 columns became exposed. Now, the Magpad is awesome. I thought it would be a bit gimmicky, but I love desk pads, and this was not only full coverage across the entire surface, but the magnets ensure it lays perfectly flat and doesn't move around. Now, this is technically a gaming desk, I get it, but I'd love to see some additional color and style options here for a more premium feel. To operate the desk, SecretLab includes an integrated programmable button option that's right inside the actual surface itself. Now, I thought this was really cool for the look, and the buttons work great. These are touch sensors, so the only feedback you'll really get is that the desk actually starts moving up and down, but the look itself was clean. Now, of course, the downside here is that you'll need to use SecretLab's top. In my case, I think it's fine because I like the metal top for attaching different magnetic accessories. But for others that want to do the old DIY option, which don't appear to be available, this is likely due to that switch integration in their top. The Magnus Pro's integrated switch is a 3-button programmable switch with one-touch height adjustment functionality. There are also standard up and down buttons to move the desk manually or to set up your programmable options. There is also an on and off switch included. This is a nice feature if you want to prevent accidentally hitting one of those touch sensors, since they're very sensitive and will activate the height adjustment easily. Now, the last feature I tested was the collision avoidance system. Putting a chair under the desk surface, I selected a preset for sitting, and the desk collided with the surface and backed off as you would expect it to. Looking closer at the build quality of this desk, we'll start with the control box. It was nice to see that Magnus Pro came with a single board system that likely operates more efficiently than those cheaper two-board alternatives. The OEM that they worked with to create this system is Changjing JS Technology out of China. Looking closer at the board itself, there was quite a bit of silicone glue used to hold the components in place, and there wasn't really any consistency here. Now, this is common in the lower-cost Chinese boards, and while some will say it's fine, there's no impact here. My opinion is it's a shortcut, and like the better circuit boards from companies like Logic Data or Linac, they could have spent more time mounting them better versus shortcutting with the silicone glue to help hold them in place for the long term. Either way, I think that they're closer than a lot of those other imported brands that are using the two-board systems versus this single-board system, so I can definitely commend them on that. The motors on the SecretLab Magnus were fine. The motors were a bit smaller than what we typically see on two-motor configurations, but I did really like to see that they enclosed their gear system in the motor to keep it cleaner and also quieter over the long run. Now, one thing that really stood out to me on the Magnus Pro was just how much grease was on the columns. When I took it apart, it made a ton of sense. The design of the column was very similar to what we had seen from brands like Jiakang and many of the other brands for that matter back in that 2017 and 18 time period. They were heavily lubricated upper glide systems, and this led to really ugly columns with a significant amount of excess lubricant. I think that Jiakang has really improved here, and while they have some grease on their imported columns, the difference between that and the Magnus is night and day. Testing the performance of the Magnus, I first wanted to see how fast this desk moves. Our test is always over a 10-inch range. This test is one that's done with the desk in motion versus it starting from a completely stopped position. Now, with that test, the Magnus operated right at 1.2 inches per second. Most of the desks that we've tested around this price range are closer to 1.5 per second, so it really just depends on what you want or what you need from a speed perspective. Adding weight to the desk, though, and testing at and beyond max capacity, I was pleasantly surprised to see that the Magnus performed consistently through all the tests, moving at that 1.2 inches per second. The SecretLab Magnus is built with a frame that includes quite large wedges between the motor box and the columns. Now, we've seen in the past for products like Uplift, this has definitely helped to create better lateral stability without the use of a cross support. Now, as I started to test the desk at its lowest heights, it was really solid up to about 42 inches. Once the desk was raised to 43 and beyond, the stability really started to drop. Now, the left to right wobble was a combination of poorly fit columns and an upper frame system that didn't utilize thick gauge steel where the columns actually attached to the upper frame, ultimately creating a weak point in the frame, which is only exaggerated as the desk is extended through max height. The front to back stability problems were a combination of the same things, but the movement in the columns from really below average glide fit meant there was a ton of play here, and as the columns extended towards max height, the overlap between these columns became worse, and by max height, this desk is pretty bad. Better fit glides to marry the two columns together would go a long way here. Plus more overlap in the actual columns themselves and a stronger upper frame system, I think without question would help make this desk more stable. Now, if you're not sure which standing desk is right for you, check out our standing desk cheat sheet linked down in the description. Thanks for watching.